Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is doing really well and hopefully you guys had a great month of rentals for the month of July. First week of August, here we are. Can't believe we're more than halfway through the year and there is a lot to talk about today. In this video, I will be going over the new changes that are about to come to the mileage specifically. I've gotten a lot of questions and messages about this, so I will be talking about this and sharing my opinion with you guys. So let's talk about the month of July and why I'm so excited, happy, and I think more than anything, just really grateful when looking at how the month of July went and really kind of what played out in the market. The big reason why I feel so happy, I guess, or, just really grateful is because when the pandemic hit in March, it was really such an unknown as to how things were going to play out. And I was really preparing for the worst case scenario. The way that I looked at it was that the market was going to be completely dead until the end of July. That is literally what I prepared for. And if you've been following my videos since then, you've heard me say that back then. And I was so glad that when May came around, things started to improve. They definitely weren't normal. It wasn't the peak summertime that we're used to seeing, but as June and July came through, things got way better. July for me was excellent. I had a really great sales month, and going into August already, the bookings that I've seen come in and the bookings that are going right now are following the exact same pattern. So I'm very optimistic for the market going into these next couple months, and hopefully for the remainder of the year, we really see a bounce back in the marketplace. So that is what I've personally seen. One of the things that I have been screaming from the rooftops is about higher pricing. Prices need to come up in the marketplace, and very consistently throughout the entire month of July, that is exactly what I implemented in all of my listings across the board. And across the board, I was able to get the higher pricing. And this really reminds me of the early days when I first got into Turo and I was getting the higher pricing on my Corvette, for example. I remember the very first booking that I got for my first Corvette. It was a 2016 C7. It was also white, but it had a black soft top convertible. Her name was Cece. I remember her first booking that she got was for $172 per day. That was the day rate on it, and I was getting it all the time. And, now in the more recent months this year, looking back at it, it made me feel like, oh my gosh, those were the heydays. Like, that's when things were really well. But the way that the month of July went really brought me back to those times where I was getting that top dollar on the day rates for my cars. And that's exactly what I experienced in the month of July. So I wanted to share a few trip receipts with you guys just from this past week or so with some of the cars and what the day rates are looking like. I just picked a few random ones to show you guys. So just so you can see, and even if you just want to go look at my listings, you can do that as well. But these are the type of price points that I am getting on my cars. So let's start off with my Bmw X4. I got $97 per day plus $40 per day on the unlimited miles option. And this car saw about 3 to 4 extensions throughout this trip. It's currently still on a trip. Will the guy extend? I'm not really sure, but he is a local renter and hasn't been doing a whole lot of driving from what I can tell. So that's been an excellent trip with me. I'm really happy. I'm just coming into close to just right under $140 per day for my Bmw X4. I mean, that is phenomenal, and I'm super happy with that. Okay, let's go on to my Corvette. You'll notice that this Corvette was a midweek rental. And my midweek rental got $143 per day. I mean, that is awesome. I want every single day to be like this because this is the market that I knew when I first started Turo. And I'm just ecstatic that I'm starting to see that trend happen again. So this is just awesome, okay? Now, moving on to my Jeep, which is currently still out on a trip. Now, this was also a semi-midweek rental. As you can see, I was getting $101 per day on my Jeep, my two-door Jeep. Now, for those of you that have had Jeeps and you've been on the platform in the last couple years, that was by far, I want to say maybe even the #1 car where the competition got so cutthroat. I mean, it was scary cutthroat, to the point where, you know, people were dropping their prices on the Jeeps down to like $35 a day, $40 per day, just because it got so competitive. And, you know, and I did the same thing. I slashed my prices, and I remember even slashing prices that low, it just was not getting the rentals that I wanted it to get. So I'm really happy to see that there is a little bit of restructuring going on in the marketplace, and it's really bringing up the values and the quality in the overall marketplace. And it's weeded a lot of those people out, and has just really, we've seen a rebound happen. So $101 per day on that Jeep, and I've seen about 2 extensions so far on this trip. Now moving on to my C300 Mercedes-Benz, also getting $101 per day. So these day rates are just, they make me so happy because the market has to support higher pricing. It's the only way that this is going to work. And it's not just a matter of supporting higher pricing. Of course, if you just price your car high, it doesn't mean that you're just going to get it. Your profile, your listing has to support that. You as a host, you have to support that. You can't just have high pricing and be a terrible host and not provide good customer service or a good experience or an absolutely spotless car. These things have to go, they all go hand in hand. If you're missing any of these things, you're not going to get that high day rate. And how do people determine that? They look at your reviews, right? What are people saying about you? What is the condition of your car? That will tell the true story of who you are as a host, what value and experience you're providing to the marketplace. And if you're on the right side of that story, that is going to allow you to get these day rates. And it's why I keep saying that you have to be so focused on providing that experience. You really, truly have to do a good job at what you do in order to have those types of results, because it can absolutely be done. Please let me be living proof that this is what I am experiencing, right? And I've seen it all throughout my years. And, you know, one of the things that I was talking about today earlier with a friend is, you know, just really how grateful I feel that over the years that I've stuck in it, and I really have stayed true to having those values of providing a good experience and providing cars that are really well taken care of, because I personally really care about these cars, and I care about the type of experience that people have. And that comes through on my reviews. That comes through on the experiences that people describe and just the feedback that I get from my renters, which in turn allows me to get that higher day rate, especially now that we are in a marketplace that has gone through quite a few changes. A lot of hosts have fallen off the platform. And so there has been sort of a cleansing of the platform, is the way that I look at it. And, you know, that proof is there in the day rates that I'm getting. So what I want to talk about next is, with all these changes that we've experienced in 2020, you really have to read in between the lines. Like, what, give it perspective, look at it from above. What do these changes mean? And what I've derived out of everything, the gist that I'm getting from Turo, is that the Turo marketplace is turning into a more deluxe marketplace, is turning into a place where you can rent a great car that is maintained really well, that is immaculately clean, and that you're not going to get at your average rental car company. And not only that, but on top of that, you're going to have a great experience with a great host, right? So now let's talk about what some of those changes have been that have been a clear indication, from what I can see from my perspective, that this is the direction that Turo is taking, okay? So one of the first changes that we saw recently, a couple months ago, was the price flooring. So Turo put a cap on how low you can price your cars. Did it affect a host like me? Absolutely. I was one of those hosts that was doing, you know, things like 3-day minimums, but I would put 1 day for $10, you know, try to entice sort of a buy 2 get 1 free is one of the strategies I used a lot, and it worked well for me. But you know what? I'm glad that they put that price flooring in and they put a cap on that, because it just really evens the playing field for everybody. There are some people who don't have the flexibility to lower their prices. And it's really not fair for a host like me, who maybe does have that flexibility because I have a higher quantity of cars, to slash my prices just to, beat out my competition and be more enticing listings. So I think that that was a good change. Even though it took away from my own strategy, overall for the marketplace, it made it better for everyone, right? People like me shouldn't be dragging other people down. So, it was a correction even for me. Then the next change that we saw, I believe it was last month, was the car value threshold for cars that qualify as a deluxe car. So before, it was any car that was valued at $55,000 or above was considered deluxe. Now from deluxe, they also have super deluxe, and I forget what the value on those cars is. So that was cool. They put a lot more cars into the category of deluxe, which they are now ranking higher. And of course, if you have a car that is valued at $45,000 or above, you are going to have that higher day rate, which is going to speak to a more deluxe audience, right? So again, reshaping the landscape of the marketplace a little bit. And then third, the big change that just went into effect as of July 31st, as we all know, was the new insurance plans. The new insurance plans went from 3 plans to 5, and 4 out of the 5 now have deductibles. So that was also a huge change. Who did that change affect the most? I believe, from my perspective, that it affected the people who do have the lower end and lower day rate cars. So somebody who has a car that is priced, anywhere between $15 and $40, it's going to be very difficult for you to be on that 60% plan and have no deductible, right? That cost of doing business is not efficient. It doesn't mathematically make sense in most cases. So I think that, again, what Turo is doing in all of these changes is that they're managing their risk, right? And that's something that you always have to think about coming into a marketplace like this, is how does Turo, who is our partner, how do they manage their risk and make sure that they are being profitable and that they can continue to stay in business and to grow? And this is one of the ways. They are transferring the risk onto hosts and vehicles that are higher risk. And in a second, I'll go over how cars that are priced at lower day rates are higher risk, and the proof is in the numbers. And so we'll go over that. And then finally, another major change that just came down the pipeline yesterday, there was an email that was sent out, was the new mileage structure, right? So right now, the way it stands is, as a host, you can choose from 100 miles and above what you want to offer per day for your car. So 100, 200, whatever it might be. And then you can also determine what you want your per mileage overage cost to be. So if you're offering 100 miles per day, the person drives 50 extra miles, you have your per mileage cost set at $1.50. They're going to be charged $1.50 extra per mile, which in many cases results in people paying really high fines for mileage overages. I know, because it does happen to me quite often, and I do see what these people end up paying, and it's quite a bit, right? It really adds up, especially when you're going 300, 400, 500 miles over, not realizing that you had a mileage cap. And of course, that is at the fault of the renter, because when you do book a car, you do see how many miles you get, but sometimes people who are newer to the platform and are not really accustomed to mileage limits may not be aware, or might not be apparent enough, and so they do get dinged with that bill. Now of course, Turo does benefit from something like this too, because they do take a chunk of that mileage overage cost, and that goes towards their profit margins, right? So when I first saw this come through my email, like the number one thing that popped into my head was, well, if they're going to control what we charge for the mileage overage and even what we allot per day, then why should they take a chunk out of that reimbursement for mileage overage? Doesn't seem fair. But then I also thought that, well, at the same time, Turo, being the one who is acquiring the customer and taking on majority of the risk, that is probably a way, that is a profit revenue stream for them. So I can see why they do take a chunk of it, because they need to offset their risk somehow and cover their cost of acquisition. And so if you're not familiar 100% with what the new changes are, it works like this. If you have a car that is not a deluxe or a super deluxe car, the minimum daily mileage that you have to set is 200 miles per day. So it's not going to let you go down to what you can right now, which is 100. Then what they do is they take your day rate and they divide it by the daily miles that is allotted, and that gives you your per mileage overage cost. So if your day rate is 100 miles and you have to give up, if your day rate is $100 per day and you have 200 miles per day is the allotment, so they'll do 100 divided by 200, which gives you 50 cents per mile that goes over the 200 mile allotment. So they are going to automatically start calculating that for you, and that will give you your per mileage. And so that customization feature that is currently there right now, where you can set the price, will no longer be there. Okay. And so what I want to kind of explain is the risk, because all of these changes that have taken place, it is clear as day that Turo is looking at their risk to reward. They're trying to minimize their risk. And finally, after being in business for so many years, they probably have a really good amount of data to really back up some of these changes that they're making to evaluate their risk, which is why they're probably putting these changes into effect. So let me take a sip of water, because I'm going to go over quite a few numbers right now, and I want to make sure that I can speak properly. Okay, so I took 2 cars in my area, totally random. I was just looking for a car that was priced high, and then I was looking for a car that was priced very low. The first one that popped up in my area was a 2017 Model X, okay? So let's look at the math of the risk, and we can see why Turo is making the changes that they're making. So the 2017 Model X is priced at $149 per day. Most renters probably choose the standard insurance option to protect their trip. And so that's what I chose in all of these scenarios. The standard insurance on the Model X for 1 day was $59.60. The trip fee for the Model X for 1 day was $27.76. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to calculate what the percentage of each one of those fees was in comparison to the day rate. So the standard protection fee of $59.60 is 40% of the day rate. The trip fee of $27.76 is 18% of what the host is charging for the day rate. So in total, what that comes out to rent the Model X is $236.36 per day. Not bad for a Model X, in my opinion. And in percentage wise, Turo is charging 58% in fees in comparison to the day rate to rent a Model X. Now, we're not even on the topic of whether their fees are too high or not. That's a totally separate discussion, but I just want to break down what their numbers look like on their end. And you have to make the assumption that when they calculate their trip protection fees and their trip fees, that it is based on some sort of a risk model and data that they've accumulated over time, right? So now let's look at a 2015 Nissan. The day rate on that Nissan is $25 per day. For standard protection on that car, it's $12 per day, and the trip fee on that car is $15 per day. So the percentage that Turo is charging in comparison to the day rate for the standard protection at $12 per day is 48% versus the Model X, which was 40%. The trip fee on the Nissan is $15 per day, which comes out to 60% of the day rate, whereas the Model X, the trip fee was 18%. So huge difference, right? These percentages are so high, so you have to make the assumption that they associate a lot of risk with this vehicle and this trip, right? And their risk could be based on multiple variables. Now in total, this is the one that really blew my mind. $12 for the standard protection, $15 for the trip fee. That's $27 in the Turo trip fees. The day rate on the Nissan is $25. So you're paying more as a guest in trip fees than you are on the actual day rate of the car. And of course, renters are gonna notice that. That's 108% that you're paying in trip fees, in Turo fees, in comparison to the day rate. It's insane, right? Why is that? Because Turo associates more risk with that transaction, with that car, with that day rate. So there is some sort of high risk model behind this. And of course, renters are gonna see that. For the renter, the total comes out to $52 per day to rent a 2015 Nissan. Now, whether that's worth it to them or not, I don't know. It's very difficult to say. It's not for unlimited miles. You can probably get something very similar from an Enterprise or a Hertz, but you'd be getting most likely a 2020 model, because right now, if you go to Enterprise, they already have 2020 models. They're always constantly upgrading their cars, which is why I truly, truly, truly believe Turo is turning into a more deluxe market, because their marketplace and their risk model doesn't make sense to have lower end cars, to have cars that are rated at a lower day rate. It's not adding up for them. They're taking on way too much risk. And for me personally, that makes me think too. You have to think about the data that Turo has the ability to collect, right? Every time we do a check-in or check-out, they see how many miles are on these cars. They obviously know the year, make, and model, and they probably have collective data on a certain make or model, and they probably know, how many claims they get, which cars are more prone to accidents, and all of that definitely fits into their risk model in determining which cars are higher risk, which cars they'd rather not have on their platform or deter renters from renting from. And it made me think about my own cars. Some of my cars right now have super high mileage on it just from being on the platform for so long. And right now what I'm thinking to myself is, dang, I need to drop these cars, because somewhere along the way, their risk model is gonna pick up that my car has way too many miles on it, that it's going to be prone to more issues, and that it has more chances of something going wrong when it's out on a trip, that it could result in an unhappy customer, it could result in a claim, and it's just not going to be cost effective for them to have it on the platform. So that is really what you have to think about. Again, reading in between the lines and really understanding where the marketplace is going is really important. And so somebody recently asked me, what car would I list if I were to list not a brand new car, a slightly older car? Right now, the car hands down that I would list is a 2018 C7 Corvette. It could have some miles on it, and that's fine. It does not have to be brand new, but these cars are proven. They have great perceived value. People have great experiences in them. The repairs are not very expensive, because at the end of the day, a Corvette is still a Chevy. It can get a great day rate, and they're just great cars that have been around forever. They just perform well. So that's the car that I would go with if I was to pick a new car right now to list on the platform that was slightly older. And honestly, I feel bad. I feel bad for hosts who do have cars that fall into that category, because I do truly think that it's going to become very hard to survive on the platform with all the changes that have gone into effect. Because at the end of the day, and I don't know how else to say this in a nice way, but bad host with cheap cars equals more risk for Turo. And that is not what they want to promote from my perspective. They want to enter into a more deluxe marketplace, and that's the offering that they want to put out there. And I've personally seen it. If you should be looking at the Turo marketplace, if you're a host on the platform, 3 to 4 times a day. And it will always tell you a story about what is going on. And the more you look at it, the more familiar you'll become with the landscape, the more familiar you'll become with the inventory that's on there, with the hosts that are ranking, with the hosts that are providing great experiences, with the hosts that are taking care of their cars, with the reviews that people are leaving and what people are looking for. It is an abundance of education that could really guide you on how to run your listings and manage your Turo business. And I've noticing people getting deranked. people that don't have the best reviews, people who don't have the best cars for the platform, that people who have really low day rates, these cars are not ranking as high as they used to. So there is definitely a change happening in the marketplace. And the way that I look at it is like, this is a market correction that's going on. And for those of you that are newer, this you might not be able to relate to this as much as those of us that have been on the platform for at least a few years. This market has gone through a lot of changes. It got really competitive, really cutthroat, really low day rates, to the point where it was just, it was crazy. And now Turo in many ways is forcing a market correction. It's exactly like what's going on everywhere else in our world right now. There's so many people who sadly have been laid off or furloughed. And the people who have been laid off, and I have family members that fall into this category, but if I truly honestly ask myself, like, do I think that this person provided the most value to this company, the people that I know that got laid off? The answer is probably no. There's probably people in that company that are way more valuable, that worked way harder, that provided way more quality and work ethic than maybe that person. And so all of these industries, the job markets, there's a lot of market correction going on right now. And if you don't offer that experience, if you don't offer that quality, that customer service, that value, you will be on that track to being laid off in the Turo marketplace, right? You're not going to be able to survive. So it's just something to really think about. And another thing that was really on my mind in relation to all of this today is the thing that we have to remember as hosts is that the Turo marketplace doesn't owe us anything at all, because it has provided us an opportunity. And I truly believe that, he who provides the opportunity holds all the power, right? Which is why we are in many ways at the mercy to the changes that the marketplace makes, because they offer opportunity, which is gold, right? And especially now more than ever, I promise you guys, we're about to see probably the most hosts join the platform than we've ever seen. One indication that I personally have for this is the amount of messages that I get on a daily basis, specifically in this last month, from people who are getting ready to start on the marketplace or that just got started on the marketplace. I mean, I'm getting these messages by the hordes. And why is that? It's because look what's going on right now. Now more than ever, there is an inventory of potential hosts for the platform. People are either working from home, or they were laid off, or their hours were cut, or their pay was cut, which means people now have more time to pursue other opportunities. Maybe there's probably a whole lot of people that want to offset their car payments. There's a whole lot of people that are looking to make extra money on the side with whatever jobs they do have going on. And there's a whole lot of people who are trying to get into something entirely new, because their life as they knew it has just completely changed because of everything that's gone on with the pandemic. And what percentage of people own a car? Probably the mass majority in most areas. Most of these people have the ability, they have the resources to get onto the platform and list their cars and make some money. So we really are going to, enter into this phase where I think we're going to see so many people come onto the platform. And we have to remember that as hosts, we are dime a dozen. We are interchangeable. The only people that these changes affect right now are the people who are already on the platform, right? We are the only ones that have something to compare this to, because we knew what it was before. But if you think about all the people who are coming onto the platform now, they don't know anything else. So when they come into this, they're 100% going to be adapted to what the model is right now. And that's going to be a-okay with them, because they're pursuing an opportunity. They're pursuing a chance at making money, at offsetting their car payments, having that side hustle. And Turo is exactly that. These marketplaces are exactly that. They are providing an opportunity right now, which people are literally starving for. And right now, these people coming into platform, they will give people like us a run for our money, because they're coming in with a better mindset, because they're not coming in with a mindset of baggage of, you know, how things were versus what things are now. And oh my God, I can't believe they made all these changes. So it's just a completely different perspective. So as a host, you have to really think of it like that. You are not owed anything other than the opportunity that is provided to you. And it is truly up to you whether you want to take that opportunity or not, because with or without us, this platform is still going to be here, because there is another host waiting right over there to come fill your spot and to provide inventory into the marketplace and to provide value and quality and service. People are motivated. They're willing to work for it. And so that's how you have to evaluate the service that you provide. And just kind of circling back to providing that quality and that value for the lower priced cars and the lower end market, and I hate saying it like that, but I don't know how else to put it. There is a huge disconnect when it comes to expectancy, right? And this, you can see this in people's reviews. A guest is expecting, especially in this climate, to have a sparkling clean car that is disinfected, that is freshly clean, where you're not seeing fingerprints on the windows, where you're not seeing trash left behind in the car, where you're not seeing clear signs that someone was in this car right before you. And for a host who has a car that is priced lower, you know, anywhere from between $15 to $40 per day, mathematically it doesn't make sense. Whether you're cleaning your cars yourself or you're getting them washed by a service provider, a good detail at minimum will cost you at least $30. Whether you're literally paying someone else or you're spending your time is still worth something. And if your reward for a $30 wash at a $25 day rate, and let's just say you're on one of the lower insurance packages, let's say you're on the 80 or 85, so maybe your takeaway is $20 or $21 or so on that after you've paid your fees, and you're putting in the time or you're paying for a $30 wash, the value proposition is just not there. The opportunity cost is too high. The cost of doing business too high. And so of course, naturally, you're not going to be motivated. So you're not going to make sure that your car is sparkling clean, because the value is just not there. And there is really that disconnect that does exist between the guest and the host in that range, because guests still have expectations that are here, but for the host, the value is here. And so that eventually over time will catch up, and that's not going to result to a great outcome for your listings. That outcome is not going to be income. So that's something that you have to think about. And so I'll wrap it up with a few more things, just some broad perspectives, right? At the end of the day, we have to remember Turo is still a tech company, right? And they are a tech company that is not yet in that profitability mode, right? They still roll in the negative. They're still proving their concept, and they are on their way to profitability. When you're a company like that, of course, you survive off of investments, which is, you know, your one method of survival while you make your way over to profitability. And when investors invest in a company like Turo, you have to remember that they're investing based off of future potential, not based off of what's happening right now. It's based off of the moves that they're making, the way that they're pivoting to accomplish their future potential. And so the question that I asked myself today is, if I were to ask Turo, if Turo was a person who, you know, had all the answers to what cars you should list or what cars not to list, if I asked Turo and said, hey Turo, I have 5 neighbors that have 5 Priuses. Should I tell them to list all 5 Priuses, or should I go to my one neighbor who has a Ferrari, and should I tell him to list his Ferrari? Ferrari would be a super deluxe car. You could set the miles at 75 miles per day with the new changes that go into effect. And you could probably charge, let's just say, $2,000 for the day rate on that Ferrari. Versus 5 Priuses that are each set at 200 miles minimum per day and a day rate of roughly about $40. which option do you think Turo would choose? Which option do I think Turo would choose? And honestly, my answer was, I think they would choose the Ferrari. And that is actually what makes me really excited about the future of this platform. It's because it is turning into a deluxe marketplace. It is turning into a place where I now feel confident going to my neighbor who does really have that Ferrari and saying, hey, you know what? You should list your Ferrari on this platform. You can offer 75 miles for the day. You're probably going to get someone who is, staying right here at Pelican Hill for the weekend, and they want a nice car while they're in Laguna Beach, Newport Beach area. They're not driving much. They just want to go down to PCH. 75 miles is perfect. They're willing to pay the $2,000. And for Turo, that's a less risky transaction. Why? Because if somebody is willing to pay $2,000 per day to rent a Ferrari and they're only allotted 75 miles, let's just say worst case scenario, something really bad happens, that is still likely a person who they can collect from for the claim, versus somebody who is renting a Prius for a day at $40, driving 200 miles for the day. So more opportunity for something to go wrong throughout the duration of the trip. And maybe it's somebody who they have less chances of collecting from should something go wrong and there is a claim. So that is how I perceive it, and that's really what I think is happening. So again, as always, I'm just one person, just one host, and I'm just sharing my perspective of how I see things, how I'm reading in between the lines of all of these changes that have gone into effect this year. Was I expecting them? Personally, I was not expecting to see these changes. I did not see this coming, but the more and more I read into it, the more I look at it, the more incessantly I look at this marketplace, the more I see that this is the direction that it's heading in. And personally, it really excites me because my core values are providing something that is of great quality, providing my guests with a great experience, because we are not in the rental car business. We are in the business of providing an experience and just providing a great overall value for what they're getting. I want them to have a seamless, flawless experience, offer great customer service. And now, before, when I heard that the C8s were first coming out, I was like, oh man, we're not really in a marketplace to where I would feel comfortable offering a C8, because I just don't know that the day rate is there, that, just the right type of audience is there for that car to where I was willing to take on that risk. But given these changes that have just gone into effect, now I for sure want to add a C8, and I hope that the market continues to prove itself with the high day rates and really rewards those hosts who do really go out of their way to maintain their cars and to offer an exceptional experience. Because if it continues to do that, which I'm fairly certain that it's going to, I am listing that C8. I don't care if I have to pay 25 grand over MSRP. I'm going to find a way to get that car, and I'm going to get it on the platform. And that is what excites me. That is what gets me up every single morning and wants to do this Turo business, is for opportunities like that. So on that note, you guys, I am going to call it a day with this video. If you were going to list a car on Turo, given the information that I've just given you, what car would you list moving forward? All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Saimah. This is Saimah's Experience. And if you like this channel, be sure to subscribe. Take care, you guys.